Hilchas Evel Perek Shishi. Now we learned that Avelus Minatera is only the Avelus of the Yom Hamisa, and if the Yom Hamisa was also the Yom HaKvura. If the Yom HaKvura was after the Yom Hamisa, so then there's no Avelus Minatera, and the Avelus is only for one day, not for 7 days. There's Kedem Matan Teda, that I mentioned before. Kedem Matan Teda, there was a musik of Avelus Shiva Yom. Then it was Nitna Teda from the Schatcha Alocha, and there's only Avelus of Yom Echad Minatera. And also that Yom Echad has to be the Yom Hamisa and the Yom HaKvura. And Moshe Rabbeinu was Tikkel Lam Yisrael that there should be Shivas Mi'avelus and Shivas Mi'amishta. So B'kitzer, so Nochamo, so there's Avelus Minatera on the Yom Rishon, and then the Avelus of the Yom Rishon extends for 7 days. That was Takana of Moshe Rabbeinu. Now the Rambam is going to discuss that there is Avelus of Shleishim Yom, and that Avelus of Shleishim Yom, according to the Rambam, is only Midrabon. It's completely Midrabon. There's no musik of Avelus of Shleishim Yom Minatera. The Raivat argues, the Raivat Titus brings that there is a limud, we learn at Pera, that there is a musik of Avelus of Shleishim Yom, or Isser of Tisperis and other things that's brought down, that there is a din of Minatera of Shleishim Yom. But according to the Rambam, the Minatera Dika Avelus is only B'Yom Rishon. What's Aser B'Yom Rishon is Midrabon Aser Kol Shiva Yom. And then there's a special din of Shleishim, which not all the things that were Aser B'Yom Rishon are Aser Midrabon B'Yom Shleishim. There's only the 5 things that the Rambam mentioned here. Perek Shishi. Medivri Seifrim, Shiyeh Ovel Neig B'Miktzas Divri Avelus Kol Shleishim Yom. That all the 30 days there should be a neig of Miktzas Divri Avelus. What's the Yisod of Shleishim Yom? Shari Huemer of Baksa Savir Vesimo Yerech Yom. Michlal Sha'avel Mitzvah Shleishim Yom. So we see there's a musik of Shleishim Yom, a Baksa of Shleishim Yom. So over there it's not a din. Over there saying the fact is that a Baksa Savir Vesimo Shleishim Yom. So al derech zeh, so the Chacham instituted that there should be Avelus for Shleishim Yom. Ve'elu dvarim she'avel aser b'em kol Shleishim Yom. Aser b'tispetis. And as we mentioned, the Raivad brings up that there's a limit when you get to Tispetis. The Rambam is saying that it's only a Mechatchila din d'Rabbanan. Also b'tispetis, and also a begiyutz. The Rambam is going to tight trace all these 5 things. B'tispetis, ubegiyutz, ubenesuin, ubesimchas mereus, v'leilech b'scheirem medina l'medina, akel chach mishadorim. So there are 5 things that are also during the Shleishim, and that is tispetis, giyutz, nesuim, Simchas Mereim, and Leilech B'Scheira Mimokim L'mokim. That says to do Scheira is right after the Shiva, it's Mutter B'Scheira. During the Shiva, it's Aser B'Asiyas Malacha, and it's also Aser B'Scheira. And we're saying over here that the Shleishim Yom, it is a special Issa, Leilech Mimokim L'mokim B'Scheira. Halacha Gimel, but the Speiris Ketzad. Kshem Sha'aser L'Saper Kol Sa'ar Gufei, Eile Galeach Svamei, Eiloket Tzipornav B'Keli Kol Shiva. That during the entire 7 days there's a isser to shave any part of your body. That says any sar gufe galech svami, or his mustache, a lokus tzipornov bekeli. To say side the mustache and side the tzipornayim would be bekeli kol shiva. Is kach oser kol shleishim. Mashenkin, if it would be biyadav or b'shinav, we learned, so then it would be mutter. B'medvar mamurim beish. But isha muter is b'ntil seir la'achar shiva. Isha is muteris right after Shiva. There's no din of the Isser of taking Sar by a Isha la'achar Shiva. However, v'ho'ish, that's at Shleishim Yom. V'alav v'alimei chayiv l'gadol sa'ara at sheyesh lach pera at sheyigru b'chaverim. There's nachamol. So there's a din d'Rabbanan, the Rambam saying, of Tisperis kol Shleishim, and that din of the Rabbanan of Tisperis kol Shleishim is the same Isser of Tisperis, which is kol Shiva, which means that kol sa'ar gufei and alder is a svami on the tilas siparna of bekeli. But on the other hand, this din is only by an ish and not by a isha. By a isha, there's no isser of tispetis of shleishim. That's what the Rambam is saying. There's no isser of tispetis by shleishim by a isha. And also, the Rambam also is that benegeh someone that lost his father or his mother, so then the isser tispetis extends beyond the shleishim, and that's achi yishlach pera. And Upel Shulchan the Ramah brings that the shear is a shear of 3 months. In other words, there should be 3 months from the last haircut. That's the shear. No, it's not Yigaru Bechaveir Bepel. It has to be the shear of Yigaru Bechaveir, which is the shear of 3 months from the last haircut. So from the Rambam comes out that there's 2 madregas. There's a madrega of Yishlach Pera, and then there's a madrega of Yigaru Bechaveir. Yishlach Pera, because Mishnah says, means that there's a long time. It doesn't say exactly how long the time. Yishlach Pera, that the long here becomes longer, obviously more than 30 days. We're talking about beyond the 30 days. By Ava V'im, it has to be Achi Yishlach Pera, Achi Yigro B'Chaveirav. And Shulchan Aruch has brought down that the shear is you wait for 3 months. That's the shear of Yigro B'Chaveirav. Doesn't mean Yigro B'Chaveirav B'Peil. And Ramoy says that it has to be the shear of Yigro B'Chaveirav, which is 3 months from the last haircut. The Ramah also writes that this heter, the Rambam says that this Isser from Shleishim is only by Isha, not by Isha. And the Ramah writes that the minig is that the Isser of taking a haircut or cutting the hair also applies to an Isha. Halacha Dalet, V'chein Asr Lulbish Kelim Levonim Chadoshim Muguhotzim Kol Shleishim. Just like we learned B'negei the Shiva, that there's an Isser to wear new white clothes that are pressed, that are side Kelim Levonim Chadoshim Umuguhotzim. So the same din applies to Kol Shleishim, Echod Da'ish V'echod Da'isha. Hoyu Tzvuim Umuguhotzim. However, if they weren't white, but they were Tzvuim, then it's Mutarim. Because the Isser is only that it should have all 3 Tnoim. It should be white and Chadoshim and Muguhotzim. V'chein Lei Hoyu Chadoshim. Aval Pishem Levonim and Muguhotzim is Mutar. So according to the Rambam, again, in order for it to be Osir, it has to be white, it has to be new, and it has to be Muguhotzim. The Ramah brings that the minig is that even if it's just Mechubasim, and even if it doesn't have to be Chadoshim, it doesn't have to be Muguhotzim, even if it's just Mechubasim, and even if it's not Lovan, it's God Mitzvuim, that are Mechubasim are also Osir. Then the Rambam continues, Uklei Pishton, Ein Bem Mishum Giyutz, because since it right away wrinkles very quickly, its linen clothes wrinkles very quickly, so therefore the musig of Giyutz doesn't apply. So even if it would be Chadoshim, Levanim, Muguhotzim, that Issa wouldn't apply. However, La'achar Shleishim, Yem is Mutter B'Giyutz, Al Fil Al Av Alimei. B'negei La'achar Shleishim, so the Issa is only during Shleishim, again, Chadoshim, Levanim, and Muguhotzim, and that applies Bein Leisha, and after Shleishim, there's no Isra at all, even if there would be Chadoshim, Levanim, and Muguhotzim. Lepelish, and Ramon also brings down that Chadoshim you shouldn't wear even in the Yud Beis Chedesh Al Av V'imei. That the musig of Chadoshim after Av V'imei you shouldn't wear for Yud Beis Chedesh, unless someone wore it earlier. Beis Yosef brings from the Kolbe that a person wore it 3 days, so then it's no longer Chadoshim. Masha'enkim, Chlal Chadoshim you shouldn't wear even if they're not Levanim and Muguhotzim. Halacha Hey, B'Nesuyin Ketzad. So the third thing we learned, that there's the Issa Tisperis during Shleishim, and there's the Issa of Gihutz, and the third thing was the Issa Nesuyin. Is B'Nesuyin Ketzad, Aser Lisa Isha Kol Shleishim Yem. To make Nesuyin with an Isha is Aser for during the 30 days. Umutal La'aretz Afilu B'Yem HaMisa. And Gei Erisin is even B'Yem HaMisa is Mutter. Aderech Tisha B'Av is also Mutter Erisin. Masha'enki Nesuyin is Aser for Shleishim Yem. That's the extra Qumrah of the Shleishim Yem, which is Midrabon. Now, that's a regular oval. Now, Misha Mesa Ishtei, someone that was Mesa Ishtei, so over there's a special concern that he should wait for 3 regolim after Mesa Ishtei in order to marry another woman, in order that he shouldn't remember Ishtei Rishena. So we say that after Shleish Regolim, he was Sameach b'Shleish Regolim, so therefore there's no concern of remembering Ishtei Rishena, which would be a problem in the second marriage. So Memela, so we say Azay, that Misha Mesa Ishtei, so it depends. Im kvar kiyam mitzvah spiri v'yirivya, if he was already mekayim mitzvah spiri v'yirivya, and v'yeshlei mishi yisham shenu, and the ainli bonim ktanim, so there's nothing really pressing that he has to get married right away, because he was already mekayim piri v'yirivya, and he has mishi yisham shenu, and he doesn't have bonim ktanim, so therefore hareza osur lisa isha acheres ad sheyavro shleish regolim, until shleish regolim pass, a special din. Aval mi shalikiyam adayim mitzvah spiri v'yirivya, eshikiyam v'yeshlei bonim ktanim, so over here there's something pressing for him to get married, either because he wasn't Mekayim Pir of Yerivya, or because Ainli Mishi Shamshanu, or he needs someone to help him deal with the Bonim Aktanim. So therefore is Hareza Muta La'aris, V'lichnes Miyad. So over here he's allowed to be Kenes Miyad, which means after the Shiva, during the Shleishim. V'asur le'laviola at Shleishim Yem. But it's asur le'laviola at Shleishim Yem. Now it's brought down, Shulchan Aruch is brought down, that if he wasn't Mekayim Piri V'rivya, so then he's mutter laviola even b'tek Shleishim Yem. In other words, this din as asur le'laviola at Shleishim Yem has only been together the other 2 reasons why he was allowed to get married. Masha'enkin, if he's getting married because he was adayin l'kiyum mitzvahs perivirivya, so he's mutter loviyala even tech shleishim game. Now v'chein ho'isha shehoisa avela, a woman that was an avela. So the Maisa, a woman that's an avela b'emes is also not allowed to get married. She's not allowed to get married for 30 days. There's certain circumstances that we'll learn later on. Perek Yud Aleph, we'll learn there's certain circumstances that if the chasna was already prepared, Mamela there's going to be a hefset. If Lepel she's not going to get married, so then she's allowed to get married even Toich Shleishim, after the Shiva. So in such a case, that's this case. And there was a heter for her to get married, but nevertheless, so basically it's the same like by a man, just like a man, which shouldn't get married until Shleishim. But if there was a heter for him to get married, either because he was, according to the Ram, Likim Mitzvahs Perivirivya, or because he has Bonim Ktanim, or because Ein Li Mishi Yisham Shana, so we say he can have Nesuyin, but on the other hand, he can be Bola. So there is a Isha, if there was a heter for her to get married, because they prepared the Tzarcha Nesuyin and Lepel, it's going to be a hefsid, so then she's allowed to get married, but on the other hand, Shalei Tiboil, she's not allowed to be involved. Halacha Vav. Simchas Mereyes Shahoye Chayiv Lefreyes. The Simchas Mereyes means that they have a group of friends, and they make simchas together, they make like sameach together, and there would be like a rotation. There was one day, one day or 1 week, one would make the simcha, and the next week the other one would make the simcha. So that would be a simchas mereyes, which is chayiv lefreyes. So he participated in the simchas mereyes, so he owes that he should be the one that should make the simchas mereyes in this particular week. And then there's Simchas Mereyes, which is not Chayiv L'Freyes. He knows he didn't receive anything, and he wants to make a Simchas Mereyes, but on the other end, it's Ein Chayiv L'Freyes. So this is the din. Simchas Mereyes, Shoye Chayiv L'Freyes, if he was obligated L'Freyes, so then it's Mutal L'Aseis, Miyad L'Achar Shiva. However, if it was a Simchas Mereyes, that's not pshat he received, and now he's giving something back, but he just wants to participate and make a Simchas Mereyes, and also to join a Simchas Mereyes, is also lehikanis la'at shleishim yom. He's not allowed to go and even join a Simchas Mereyes for 30 days. That it's only 30 days. Aval alav v'alimei is benkach or benkach, whether he is obligated or is not obligated, is lehikanis l'Simchas Mereyes, hashnei masar chedesh, is nachamol. A regular, not a Avivime, so if he's Chayiv L'Peira, he's allowed to make it, and he's allowed to participate in it. If it's not something that he's obligated, so he's not allowed to participate for 30 days. Mashenkan Alav V'Ime, there's no difference whether he's Chayiv or he's Chayiv L'Para, not Chayiv L'Para, he's not allowed to participate in the Simchas Mereyes for 12 months. Halacha Ches. Al Kol HaMesim Kulam Mutal Leilach B'Scheira L'Achar Shleishim Yom. After 30 days, you're allowed to go B'Scheira. However, Alav V'Alimei, so we said before, that was the fifth thing, that you're not allowed to be leilach b'scherim emdina l'mdina. You shouldn't go b'scherim emdina l'mdina for shleishim yom, for the first shleishim day. So on that he says, al kol ha-mesim kulam muter leilach b'scherim l'achar shleishim yom. Kedem shleishim yom it's aser, that's this extra din d'rabbanan b'negeh shleishim, but after shleishim it's muter. V'al aviv alimei ad sheyigor b'chaverev v'yemru leilechimon. And also, v'chein al kol ha-mesim kulam, there's two dinyanim. There's a union of doing Asik. You're not allowed to do Asik during Shiva. After Shiva, you're allowed to do Asik. But there's a musik of being Mamayid basic. In other words, not doing Asik in a serious way, being Mayid, doing as little as possible. So I'll call him Asim Kulam Rotzim Mamayid, Rotzaini Mamayid. He's not Chiv to be Mamayid, but he could be Mamayid. However, Allah Valime, but it's Allah Valime, so then it's Mamayid Biske. So then he has to be Mamayid Biske. Then there's a Chiv to be Mamayid Biske even after the Shiva. Not to buy things and sell things because sell things in order to have money and to buy things because things that he needs. Is however, if he's not able to, is so then he could do it. So notice again, it's only not there's no chiyah to be ma'id b'iskei. Masha'en kein b'negeya there is a chiyuv l'mayit b'iskei. When is he allowed to not be l'mayit b'iskei? Only if he has no choice. He's heilig m'makom l'makom, and he needs to buy things in order to for chayin nefesh. So then he's allowed to buy things for chayin nefesh, and that's not a problem, even if al v'imei. That's this dip. So from the lashon, it sounds like it's not even very very simple things of buying and selling. He's not allowed to. There's Allah, he has to be Mamayid B'iskei. However, if he's a Heilig M'Makom L'Makom and he needs to buy things in order to have Chayin Nefesh, so then that's permissible. Halacha Yudalef. Misha Hoya Baila Tzolov Ima Be'ir. Someone that the Malchus hung up her husband, and he was hanging there, and she's living in that city. Oy ishtetz fakert, the person, the wife was hung, or the parents were hung, and they're living in that city. They hung by the goyim, and they're not letting them to be buried. Is the din is also leilishkin be'eser ha'ir achi yichla basar. Because when a person finds himself in that city, so people start saying, "Oh, this person that's hanging is this person's wife, this person's husband, this person's parent," and that's not their cheretz for the person that's hanging, because lepel, the fact that they mean mefarsim who he is more of a bizoin for us than it is. So that's a greater bizoin. So therefore, you shouldn't be drengzach in that city in order not for people to identify who the person that was hung is. So the din is asur lishkan be'esoyer achi yichla basar. When it's yichla basar, so that person that's hanging is not recognizable. So therefore, people won't identify him as being this person's father or this person's husband. Is also because the people on that side of the city where the person is hanging doesn't really know this person that's living on the other side of the city. Therefore, the Nekudas Advarim is the issue of living in that city is not to cause people to identify who the person that's hanging is by this person that's drengzach there. And therefore, he shouldn't be there. He shouldn't be there in order for not to cause that people should identify him, and that would be more of a bizoin of the mess. Halacha Yud Beis Yem Shvi Miktsasi Kekulei and V'hu Eila Lekano Lekan. So really, it's the end of the shiva. It's the end of the shiva, and it's also in Miktsasi Kekulei. You know, you don't have to wait the whole seventh day. Miktsasi Kekulei has already a din of the shiva, and V'hu Eila Lekano Lekan. It's also the beginning of the shleishim. L'may nafkamina, that's already the beginning of the shleishim. Nafkamina would be, the din is that if the shleishim began before Yontif, so then the Yontif, like we'll learn later on Perek Yod, the Yontif is mevatel the shleishim. So if the Yom HaShiv, the seventh day of the Shiva, is on Erev Yontiv, so we say that Miktzas Hayem is Kekule, so the Shiva ended already after Miktzas Hayem on Erev Yontiv, and the Shleishim began already on the second half of the day, and since the Shleishim already began on the second half of the day, and now Yontiv came, so Mele Yontiv is Mevatel the Shleishim. In other words, if it would say that the Shleishim only starts the day after the Shiva, so Mele comes out the Shleishim didn't start yet, so it wouldn't be Mevatel. That's the Chiddush. So Mixas Hayem Kekule, Mele, you don't have to continue all the dinim of the Shiva during the seventh day, and also that the Shleishim started towards the end of the seventh day, and not towards the end of the seventh day. It was after the Mixas Hayem, the beginning of the day even. But as long as there was already the beginning of the day was Shiva, and then the extension of the day is Shleishim, and then if it was Yontiv, this was Erev Yontiv, so Mela Yontiv is Mevatel the Gzeda Shleishim. Let's read inside. Halacha Yud Beis Yem Shvi Miktsasi Kekulei and V'hu Eila Lekano Lekan Lefichach Mutter Lechabes V'lirches V'lasi Shara Dvarim B'Yem Shvi. So on all the things that you're allowed to do after the Shiva, you're allowed to do on the seventh day after the Miktzas Hayem, which was in the beginning of the day. V'chein Yem Shleishim on the 30th day is also Miktsasi Kekulei, and therefore Mutter L'saper U'legayis B'Yem Shleishim. In other words, there's an Isser, like we learned, L'saper U'legayis on during the Shleishim. Masha'inkin, once it's the 30th day, so in the rest of the 30th day, the beginning of the 30th day, we say has the din of the Shleishim. But then it's Miktsasi Kekulei, and the rest of the 30th day has a din like after the Shleishim, and therefore those things that were Asas, the Saper, the guides which were Asas, the Shleishim is mutter on the rest of the Yem Shleishim. Halacha Yud Gimel. Mi shetakfu Avelov, someone that had on Avelis one after the other, and Hichbit Sare, Memela his Sare is very long. In other words, it became long. In other words, the person before he finished, he's not allowed to take a Tesperis for the Shleishim Yem, and before he finished the Shleishim Yem of Tesperis, he had another Avelis. So Memela now it's Hichbit Sare. So the din is Mekel Betar. He's not allowed to take a haircut with a scissors, but he's allowed to cut it off with a tar. Leib Misparayim. Listen, not the derech, the regular normal derech of a Tesperis, but in order for his hair not to be so long. And also, Mechabes Ksusei B'mayim. There's during Shiva, there's an Isser of Mechabes Ksusei, but this person is already, he was Takfu Avelov, and Memela says Mechabes Ksusei B'mayim. This is even during the Shiva. Avalei B'neser, V'lei B'chel, not with detergent, not with type of detergent, just cleaning agents, but just with water. He should wash his clothes with water. And also, V'rechetz Kol Gufi B'tzein. Normally, you're not allowed to wash Kol Gufi B'tzein during the Shiva, but over here, since this person is takvu avel, even though he just sat shiva and now he's sitting shiva again, Rahman al-Islam. So memela, so he's allowed to be reichetz kol gufi b'tzein, avalei b'chama, but not with warm water. V'chein misha takvu avel v'bo medinas hayam beis hashivya. So a person was in Medinas Hayam and rose before the Avelis, he was already in Medinas Hayam, and memela at that point in time he wasn't able to do regular normal preparations of haircut or washing himself. Or he came to Beis Hashivya, again, he didn't have that ability to do those things that you would normally do. He was in Chedim, V'hutar, and someone that's in Chedim is also Asur, he's Asur b'tispetis, and he's Asur b'kibus, and Oy Shahoya Mudar V'nishal al Nidrei V'hutar, or he was a person that was Mudar to be able to take a haircut or to wash himself, and v'cholayetzi mituma l'tara, someone that goes mituma l'tara, which also a person that's in a massive of tuma is also lehiskashet, because we want people should know that he's tummy and shouldn't come near to him. V'cholayetzi mituma l'tara is all of these people is harei elu megalchem b'mei evlam. They're allowed to take a haircut while they're in Evel. Why? Because hail v'tokaf esam Evel acher Evel v'leimotzu pnai. There was no time for them to do it earlier. So since in special circumstances, so Chazal were makel and said that since it was takfu avelav, or he became an oval right behemshel to a matzav where he wasn't able to do all these things, so therefore there's a special heter for him to go ahead and to take a haircut. And as the Rambam said before, he could wash himself or even wash his clothes without soap, or wash himself in cold water because of the circumstances that he finds himself in.